and then they were none. Hello everyone, please forgive the bad piano piece in the beginning of the video. I have to learn it from my daughter just for this episode. You can't believe the amount of eye rolling involved. Anyway, welcome to Harry's Book Cafe, where we'll talk about everything and anything to do with books. Today I want to talk about Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. I think apart from Arthur Conan Doyle's or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, this perhaps is the most famous detective or crime novel ever written in the English language. It has inspired so many adaptations. As far as I know, there are at least 4 film adaptations, the latest being the BBC miniseries that was aired in 2015. There are numerous different plays, theatres, and it has inspired so many books, some of them really, really phenomenal, which we'll talk about that a little later. I've just finished reading the book. Did I enjoy it? I know this is very controversial to many hardcore Agatha Christie fans. So yeah, hear me out. I'll talk about how I feel about the book a little later. But just the plot line. I think many people have already know about this book or heard about it, at least have a rough idea what the plot is involved. It is very complicated. In my edition of the Kindle, which I read, Agatha Christie did say in the preface or forward that this is the most difficult book she has ever written, and you know that she has written so many. She said that she had to do quite a lot of detailed planning just to make sure everything is gone track the way that it did. And I can certainly appreciate that. From the plot line itself, you can appreciate that there must be lots and lots of planning going on to make sure that it doesn't confuse readers in any way. So the storyline involves around 10 perfect strangers. They come from different walk of life. There's a doctor, there's a retired high court judge, there is a retired detective, a teacher, all sort of different characters, 10 of them in all. They were invited by someone they know to come to this mysterious soldiers' island that's just off the coast of Devon. On that island, there's a very modern mansion where they are invited to spend the weekend. When they arrive, they start to get to know each other. The conversations start to become less awkward as time as all of them had a very nice meal and quite a large quantities of alcohol in their belly. So the conversation become a little easier to flow. And at that precise moment, one of the members dropped dead. And the death haven't stopped until the very last one of them are gone. So the central object of the book is to create that tense atmosphere of suspicion, and I think to a certain extent it succeeded. But I also think that the book fallen into victim of its own success because it is so successful. Most of the people know roughly what the plot line is about. So when that surprise come along, when someone dropped dead and the next one dropped dead, you don't really notice that much because A, we know roughly what the plot line is, and B, I think we are desensitized by the more grosser, more graphic modern crime novels. So when the surprise come along, you don't really notice much. I think what's really nice touch is throughout the book, the death of the guests is strictly connected to a nursery rhyme. Excuse my pronunciation, I'm Chinese, so R is very difficult for me to pronounce. Nursery rhyme. 10 little soldiers, each of them, I think with each refrain, one soldier is dead. So the next refrain, you have one fewer soldiers, until the very famous last line of the rhyme is, and then there were none. And the guest died in the same circumstance as it was reflected in the rhyme, which is really nice touch. I think it's quite creepy in that sense, which then leads to how believable it is. I think the murderer, by the way, you won't find out who he or she is until the very last page, and then you start scratching your head because there are so many variables that could have easily go wrong, easily go wrong. Especially the murderer, sorry, wants to keep as close to the rhyme as possible, and you start questioning whether or not that can be done in reality. The answer is probably not. You probably can't do it. And that's where the novel starts to really lose some of the grips on your attention. You start to think, okay, this is quite impossible. This is not plausible in reality. But anyway, that aside, I just want to talk about the style of the writing. I think the vocabulary, the structures of the sentence really reflect time that it was written. For instance, let's talk about punctuation. Everyone's favorite subject. In modern novel, when we have a conversation, if we have a character in the beginning of the sentence followed by a tag, for example, Harry says, then behind that says there should be a comma followed by quotation mark. Harry says Harry's book club is Harry says Harry's book cafe is fantastic, right? Something like that. Harry says, comma. But in the actual book itself, at least the Kindle version that I received, is like this. It's Harry says, colon, followed by quotation mark. Colon is such a formal punctuation mark. You only ever see them mostly in textbooks. I mean, it's not a big deal. To many people, it's not a big deal. But to me, I'm a little bit fussy on the style front. But yeah, apart from that, reading that book gives me the sense as if I'm reading the grown-up version or the darker version of the Famous Five. The language is very similar. The style of sentences is very similar. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just doesn't really float my boat, if you know what I mean. Did I enjoy it? Yes and no. I enjoy the sense that it is such a complicated story. I enjoy the fact that I'm breathlessly waiting to see who will be bumped off next, because I never read that book before, so that's really exciting. And as I said, the nursery rhyme is really a nice touch. I also didn't really enjoy it. Well, a little bit underwhelming, if you know what I mean. It's I was hoping for more. I was hoping for a little bit more intense atmosphere, which I didn't get from the book. I think that's what the writer wanted to achieve. I doubt that she succeeded. I've read other Agatha Christie's books and I like them, but I think with And Then There Were None, there was such a high expectation, at least from my part, that I can't help but to feel a teeny bit disappointed when I finally finished reading that. So in the beginning of the video, we were talking about the inspirations that inspired other writers, and one of the most, at least for me, one of the best one is The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I've read this book many years ago, and I remember receiving the biggest shock ever from reading a book, and that happened in the quite a few pages into the book, and I was absolutely speechless. I have to put the book down and really just take a break, have a look at my surroundings, maybe make a cup of tea, and just really slow it down and just digest what I have read. It's unbelievable. It's the biggest shock from reading the book I've ever received in my life, and I really, really, really enjoy it. And I always recommending that book to everyone that I come across. Definitely give it a try. It is, all these years later, all these books later, it is still one of the top 5 of my favorite books. So definitely check it out. I'm gonna reread it and then do a in-depth review sometime soon. But yes, that's pretty much it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what your experience are like with and the newer now, and Agatha Christie in general. I mean, she's such a great writer. So leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of her, what you think of this book. And please, as I said, it's a new channel. It needs all the help it can get. Please give it a thumb up and subscribe. And I will see you very soon in the next episode. Cheerio.